Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. As you all are aware, today's session is about the importance of research in terms of academic profile. So, as you all are aware, the theme of our today's webinar is From Curious to Competitive, using research to build a strong academic profile. Our speakers for today's webinar are Ms. Chavi Behel and Mr. Abhishek Gulati. Ms. Chavi Behel is the founder of Peak Potentia, an education-focused organization committed to helping students identify and achieve their full potential. With over 20 years of experience in education, she has worked as a senior school teacher, vice principal, and a paper checker for both ISC and CBSE boards. Her journey in education began during her postgraduate studies at the Delhi School of Economics, where she developed a strong belief that every student can excel when guided by the right processes, tools, and mentorship. This philosophy has led her to establish Peak Potentia, an organization built on the principles of focus, exploration, and balance. Before founding Peak Potentia, Ms. Behel served for 10 years as vice principal at the Sri Ram School, Aravali, playing a key role in shaping academic programs and institutional initiatives. She has since mentored students in academic research writing, advanced placement preparation, and international competition readiness over 5 years. Ms. Behel's expertise lies in fostering innovative research, encouraging interdisciplinary learning, and guiding students to translate academic potential into meaningful outcomes. She continues to inspire students to become confident, independent learners prepared for global academic challenges. Our Joining her is Mr. Abhishek Gulati, who's the VP for Global Education and Strategy at Mindler. Abhishek is a global education strategist leading Mindler's international vertical, driving growth and partnership across key markets. As a mentor, he has guided hundreds of students in shaping world class academic and career journeys, with many securing admits to Ivy Leagues and other top global institutions. An alumnus of University College London, with academic experiences at the London School of Economics and HEC Paris, Abhishek brings together strategic foresight, cross cultural expertise, and a deep passion for helping students unlock their potential. Over to you, Abhishek and ma'am.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Adari. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much once again for joining us. My sincere request that all of you please post your questions or messages to everyone. You have something mentioned to host and panelists. You can kindly click on that and make it to everyone. So all of us get to know. It shouldn't look like that ma'am and I am answering questions which you don't see. It'll be a lot more easier. I have just changed the settings as well. Can you try and do that? And also to confirm that all of us are visible and audible to you. And please don't raise your hands. We won't be able to allow you to unmute yourself. That'll be too tricky for us. So apologies. Wonderful. Madhukar, Rasta, Mariam, all of you who have sent messages, just change it to everyone. Great. Thank you so much. Now I know somebody has. Great. Wonderful. I'm very glad that your questions are flowing in. Just to set broader context, before I begin, just make sure you're putting your questions. The team's here. We'll keep answering the questions, but allow us to cover the topic we have for you. It's very interesting. We'll try and do justice to it. At the end, we'll try and answer as many questions as we can, and we'll allow you to reach out to us later over email. Wonderful. Um, I believe the reason we picked up this topic is because so many of you were reaching out about students and parents alike, and it'll be great if parents are here. They can just mention in the names or just in the bracket when they reach out they're a parent. So it's great to know where the question is coming from. When we look at the word profile, which is overused and everyone talks about it as well, one important component I kind of believe gets overlooked, which is the academic profile. Today, we're focusing too much on any student or parent who's talking to me talks about, okay, how do I do activities, projects, internships? But one area a lot of people misunderstand, and that's what ma'am and I will try and explain better, the importance of research, not only to showcase in your college applications, but also as a life skill. Thanks to how the dynamic has shifted over the last 5, 7 odd years, in the last few years, AI has also contributed to this. All of us have somewhat forgotten or lost the habit of researching. We don't even understand how to go about this. And there's nobody to be blamed. That's how the system is. But that's one skill all of us require by default. And it's a misunderstood thing, if I can say so, that research only can happen if you're doing sciences. I feel, why can't a history student work on research? They have more to dig deeper into, quite literally. So the idea is to help you understand that when we are looking at building a strong profile, academic rigor can also be shown, and the best way to show it is also through research, and we'll extend on that. Before I bring ma'am in and ask her to delve deeper into research, as that's her core area of domain, core area as well, I want to just broadly cover the idea that uh, today admissions are looking beyond marks, and I feel all of us understand that. But what that means is we don't need perfect scores. Most students that I've worked with over the last 6 or 7 years, I've realized, have had wonderful academics, but there was lack of consistency. What I mean by that is we score the best marks in grade 10. We are preparing for boards in grade 12. We forget that class 9 and 11 are equally important. There's no sync in progress, there's no consistency. And unfortunately, those universities sitting thousands of miles away who have never met you, don't know who you are, where you come from, see a 95 in 10, a 55 in 11, and again a 95 in 12. And that becomes a very tricky thing for a university to realize that you're a really good candidate and you might miss out an opportunity. You deserve a seat at a good university, but this is very sad. So you have to be mindful of what looking beyond a score really means. Some of the key differentiators that I have personally analyzed is, how do we show our intellectual curiosity and breadth? I mean, I'm studying 5 subjects in high school or 6 subjects in certain cases, but what if my learning is not supposed to be restricted to that? How do I pick up more subjects, which a university will look at and believe that, oh, the student is fairly curious, and they also are able to show intellectual depth by picking up additional exams, showing complementary research to prove that, listen, I genuinely care about the domain. And just this morning, one of my students sat for an interview and said that I want to work in policy making. And the student has studied only economics. And the interviewer asked her, why not political science? And she said that, oh, I mean, economics can do it for me. Sure. But political science as a subject also complements that. And she didn't have an answer because her school didn't offer her a subject, but she couldn't communicate that. Right. But what we can control is reading, researching about domains beyond our subject areas as well. Correct. There are multiple evidences to this. Of course, Harvard is a name we trust. Academic creativity is being lost, but how do we preserve and actually build on this? Is that also the reason we started this conversation, Nana, here? I don't think I have to spell it out, but I'll just make it simple that intellectual curiosity is not just a term which sounds fancy on paper. There are multiple ways to show that and talk about it. As a student, when I observe them, I feel that as we move from 8 to 12, that's what the audience is today as well, the number of questions we ask continue to decrease dramatically. And that shouldn't really happen, because as I move up the ladder, my curiosity is supposed to increase. But for some reason, we are limiting ourselves and pushing ourselves in a boundary that doesn't work. The funniest thing I find in our country, sadly, and actually globally, is we ask the kids to think outside the box. Why have we put them in a box in the first place? We're not supposed to have like four walls and then be like, listen, let's think beyond it. They're not supposed to be walls when you start wondering, right? That's the entire idea. The schools and universities you go to also contribute a lot, and some of the ecosystems in India are actually placed or ready or trained or developed, whatever word you want to choose and fit, to support that. But over time, we lose the plot. But as a student and parent, it's our responsibility. I mean, I come home at the dinner table, parents have the best opportunity to ask kids, okay, tell me more about what you were talking about. And see how much and for how long can the kid be invested in talking about that domain. Is the easiest way to realize or make them curious. Okay, why don't you go and find out about this? And there's enough content, fortunately, unfortunately, for us to watch. Correct. University priority is something that I'm doing research, but the best part is universities are also asking for it. So when I'm researching, I can keep it in mind. I'm curious, but this curiosity is being rewarded by getting a place, securing a place. It all comes full circle. However you want to start the journey, it's up to you, right? Um, Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us. I want to quickly bring you in, and would love to hear your views on how you have seen research shape up and how it's so important and only continues to grow.
Hi, Abhishek. Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you. Thank you, parents, for joining in. So I'll take on from where Abhishek was talking about numericals. He was talking about a number game, which I think across the board, that's what your mark sheet reflects. It reflects a number. Again, my question has always been, is the number reflective of the academic potential of a child? Yes, to a certain extent, definitely. But is it reflecting a skill that you are trying to develop your child to take up at the university level? So, my journey of research started from the fact when I saw that students are getting good grades, no doubt, but the grade is a reflection of what they have learned. It is a content based journey, it is not a skill based journey. And education, actually, if you look at it and go into the historical aspect of it, is a journey of skill. So from from your primary school to the middle school to the higher secondary school, you should be on an upward skill up. It is not a content up, it is a skill up. And so the journey of education has actually taken a transformational leap. If you notice, students today are very content with the content because they can get the content from anywhere. The problem the student faces today is, how do I learn? How do I write? And that is the problem which continues with them even at the university level. So my journey of research started when I started seeing this lacuna. You see, we have never incentivized writing because writing is only meant to write answers, which is so, so sad actually. So, the journey of research, what I have understood it as, is to develop a couple of skill sets very, very commonly spoken at all school forums are things like critical thinking, analytical skills. But has any school ever been able to measure? You can't, because these are intangible. But the only way to check the development of that skill is when the child writes not what is in the text, but what is the opinion. That opinion generation is one of the largest skills that you develop in an individual through the process of research. So, Abhishek, like I would like to ask you, you've also been a student and you've got great grades and you went to UCL, and moving from a school system which was highly academic, I'm
Hmm.
sure that you would have faced some kind of an issue when you were suddenly thrown open into a forum where you said, right.
No,
So, what was that feeling like?
lost is the easiest word. Also, please, like for example, I still know that we have boards today which are encouraging academic research. But back in the day, it was just like you throw into the deep end, and then you're wondering your classmates are coming from the best schools in the world as well, and they know how to research. And you
Yeah.
start feeling that now you're not at par, you're catching up. So the first few months, you're like, oh, how do I actually progress and do well when have to go back to basics and learn this? Fortunately, you find your way, but students from India are not supposed to be doing that. We are supposed to be ready when we enter universities. So that was a clear lag. In fact, today also, despite going to some really good schools in India, it's so sad to see that these kids are not aware how to go about this. And I completely take the blame off them because they have not been taught how to research the right way or encouraged.
Exactly. So I'm coming from that point where we will all, our children, all feel that pressure because suddenly, and now it is like you rightly said, happening in India itself, Indian universities. So, though all boards, whether it is an IB, whether it is A levels, or whether it is your CBSE, ISC, also have instituted the concept of research through projects, but the amount of effort and time that should be given to research is unfortunately not being possible due to whatever the school timetables or whatever it is. So, every child, I feel, should be taught the nuances of research. And when I'm talking about nuances of research, I am meaning, for example, you need to think like a scholar, you need to develop you need to talk with evidence. You have been participating, a lot of our students participate in debates, they participate in MUNs. What are they doing? They are researching, but they are reflecting verbatim data. What is the opinion with the evidence? So the research paper that you write It is talking about, firstly, conceptualizing a research question. Most of the students, and how it helps you in a day to day analysis also, a lot of students, even when they have to write an answer, they don't know how to begin. So beginning becomes a problem because all thoughts are stored in your head, but there is no flow. So we have not taught our children how to write with a flow. So the first thing that a research paper will do is it'll help the child to learn opinion, learn evidence, detect a bias, correct a relationship, maybe a cause and effect relationship. So when I talk of a research paper, I would definitely talk about certain skills that would be developed during the process of a research paper. For example, you will learn to comprehend a question. We are all very, very infused with the latest jargon. We're very excited. And I'm very proud to say that this generation thinks beyond, really beyond what you and I as parents can imagine. They really think beyond that, but they are not being given the ability to research what they think. So being able to comprehend a problem, then being able to find evidence of that problem, also bringing data is supposed to be big. Everybody wants to do data, but what is data? Who's teaching the children how to interpret the data? Researchers. When you look at a graph, how do you interpret it? Why is it the way it is? It is only then that the student will start thinking. So very rightly, as Abhishek started and spoke about the four walls, and said that why are there walls, and we are constantly saying that schools today are making students think out of the box. But why was the box there in the first place? If there was a box, the student today wants to break through. But we are not giving them the opportunity because they need to research. And unless and until they get the time to do it, and unless and until they are able to frame and write it, they will never be able to evolve their thinking process. So the other skill, when I was talking about data, I'm trying to say that you being able to identify what does data mean, how do you use that evidence to solve a problem, and then clearly giving an opinion. I'm sure, Abhishek, you can help me with that. You meet so many students on a daily basis. If you give them a problem, how do they answer it with respect to a solution? Do they have a solution, or do they have a pro and con, or do they just say this is also right and this is also right?
I believe, ma'am, the thing is today, most of us fail to understand a problem in the first place. In fact, if I start talking to a student today and I ask them that, listen, uh, before I begin, I'll request the students from, I don't think you are from WHS because I know the school and kids are well behaved. I might just ask you to leave if you continue this charade on the chat. People are here to learn, so be respectful and mindful. Thank you so much. Great. Ajay, can you take care of this? Great.
Yes,
Thank you.
on it.
Okay, perfect then. Coming back to your question, ma'am, I feel if I ask Surendra, listen, let's talk about something in research on, they will not start with a particular problem or topic. They'll be like, okay, let me do research and start with it. How can you start with research when you don't research about topics as well? They jump onto the bit that, okay, let's start doing it. I feel the most important time and consideration is how do you find the particular topic you care about? Right?
Hmm.
The first time I was able to write a thesis or do research, and I really wish somebody taught me that in school, it took me forever
Hmm.
to just understand what is the problem, how do I go and develop a hypothesis in the first place, and how do I reject it for myself before talking about it. So
Yeah.
communicating it to others and yourself and analyzing that, listen, the first thing I'll come up with is the right thing to do. That's one. Because if I have to find a solution, there has to be a specific area I talk about. Because research also um, cannot be that broad today. I mean, it's as simple as saying, listen, I want to research on AI. I'm sorry, that means nothing to me. What are we talking
Absolutely.
about? What part of it you are excited about? Because if you are interested, you will go further. For instance, I was talking to a student, he's like, I love athletics and sports and I love numbers. I'm like, great, let's do a research in how numbers are important when it comes to sports. Not rocket science, but what particular area excites you? It can't be a research paper on sports, it can't be a paper on numbers.
Correct. But it's a great thought that a child is trying to merge two
Yes.
topics together.
Yeah.
which is the beauty of research, because research is not structured in the sense that it is giving you it is not curriculum teaching, it is self evolvement, self realization. And Abhishek, I have discovered over these years, the skills that I've seen my students develop with academic research is first and foremost time management,
Right.
because it is limited into we've put it into a structural system. So in that sense, they're able to write within a time frame. They're definitely able to solve a problem. So problem solving becomes very, very important. And the theme that you have picked up, which is so brilliant, which is make taking curiosity to the next level, which actually builds on the intellectual confidence of a student. Because when you write, you are all self empowered, you are the one who has written that paper, and you can talk about it, you can voice it, it is your opinion. So there is also this myth that, students come back to me and say, but I write a blog.
Hmm.
A blog is something which is very different from an academic research paper.
True. True.
Blog may not have data.
Hmm.
Blog can just be an opinion. But research paper is where you are picking. For example, if you want to pick up a question which is talking about, like you said, cricket and numbers, or sports and numbers, or like we did a very interesting paper on a student who was interested in chess but wants to pursue economics, and we did a paper on game theory of chess. So
Yeah.
the point is that research is making you write about what you enjoy, with the ability and the additional links of skills which it is developing. So in my head, I think in today's world and in today's time, an academic research paper opens the mind
Hmm.
beyond the curriculum. It incentivizes writing. It gives great skill set to the student, because the student is able to understand what they want to do. And more than anything, what I have seen over the years is that it has given them a boost of confidence.
No, I
Because
don't agree.
some, I'm sure you meet so many kids who are just looking for appreciation, and all of
Right.
us want that appreciation. But everybody is not going to be able to come first in the race all the time. But this research paper is just your own race, and you are the winner. So why will you not want to be the winner in something that is completely in your hands? Nobody else is leading it but you. Another thing I don't know, but again, this is a question that I would love to ask you, Abhishek, that in the number of students that you meet, I'm sure they do brilliant project work, they make very good presentations,
Mhm.
but do they read?
In fact, my question 2, 3 years ago to students used to be, okay, do you read? Now my question has become, what's your preferred mode of acquiring information, reading, watching, listening? Because it's become a way that they are going to answer that. Listen, I'm watching something, listening to a podcast, which is also great. At least you are listening to good content. But the challenge is, I feel if I'm listening, it's as simple as saying if I'm listening to a piece of content, will I be able to analyze and articulate that? I've done this study. I've spoken to multiple kids after reading an article or listening to the same thing. The data or amount or important information they were able to recall was always higher in reading for obvious reasons.
Correct.
Right? So it is so important to tell the students, great. In fact, I've gone to a point where I'm saying, you don't like to read a book, sure. Can we read an article or a blog a day? Because I can't force you into reading a book if you wouldn't want to. In fact, how I keep saying it, the easiest muscle to trick in the world is your brain. If you love reading about sports, fashion, automobile, whatever students like, even video games, go read more about that, right? And I've
Correct.
seen students pick up a book about the art of gaming or game theory, like how do we design games, and these are kids who would never pick up a book, but at least they are building a habit, which is important for me, right?
Correct. Yeah. Absolutely. So again, parents do come to me to say sometimes that, ma'am, I'm very keen that my child writes the academic research paper, but isn't it very overwhelming for the child? Because he is not used to reading.
True.
Again, my question is that you do not need to read 600 pages to write an academic research paper. It is about reading the right content. You need to sieve information. I don't know. I think we, as a national board, also many years ago used to have something called pressy writing, which
Correct.
was,
Yeah.
summarizing your information, which was a great skill in an English language paper. But over the years, it's died a natural death. And that is what the main problem is, that since academic rigor has become so objectified, we have lost the power to research and read and research. So, again, I am not saying that if you can't read a 400-page novel, you should still be inducted into reading. It is not about that. It is about the ability to infer, infer from 4 pages. So again, academic research is teaching you what? If from those 4 pages I can figure out what is relevant for me, I'm home.
Hmm.
You're teaching the child the skill to sieve information. And that is a skill that you need to know wherever you are in the world, India or abroad or anywhere. And you need to know it for a daily practical life. Supposing you go to, you're visiting a place, if you don't know what you're looking for, you'll be thoroughly confused and
Yes.
waste your time. So academic research, unfortunately, the term research paper sounds very heavy, sounds very, oh, it's academic rigor. The rigor has to be made a skill. The rigor has to be made something that a student enjoys. The rigor is what is giving you confidence. I just saw a question which popped up suddenly, which says, how do students become confident?
Yeah.
It is an inert ability of every child. Every child is born confident. I sometimes feel it is so wrong to keep alienating students by saying, oh, my child is not confident. His friend is very confident. He's got a leadership position. The child is a leader in himself. We just need to identify that skill. And that is why I find that an individual paper or an individual research work is something which is giving the student a little trigger of confidence. This is what I did. It is not about grammatically sounding brilliant. It's not a Shakespearean version of life. It is your connect. It is your ability to talk to the world through the paper. That is
Correct.
what you are trying to do. In this generation of memes and extreme short forms, you need to learn to understand that full forms are equally important, because in your working life, short forms may not work. The
Absolutely.
legality, I'm sure when you place students and students are coming back to you for academic work, etc., they need to understand what is legal, understanding what is the correct terminology. How will they know the terminology if they've not read? So the benefit of academic research is with all these different skill sets that take place in the journey. I would also call research very experiential. It
That's
varies
true.
from children to a student to student. It varies from different age groups. It is not to be and I also feel it should not be a place to be judged,
Hmm.
because it is you. It is talking about you as an individual. Your journey into the research is what is important, because it is about you. You can be a mentor for a research. That is why you say you are a mentor. You're not the writer. The thought is what is important, and the thought is brilliant in the student. We should work towards, sort of carving that little niche that every child has through this academic research. I also feel, I don't know, Abhishek, since you meet so many students, are they able to, and this is a question for you, I'm sure you will give me different versions of this. Are they able to identify an interest?
Let me look at this way. No? So let's say, Auntie, if I ask you what do you like to eat, tell me a cuisine you love to eat.
Okay, Indian.
Then, so now Indian, let's say, let me pick up to make it specific South Indian, right? So,
Right.
cuisine. Now, if I go to a student and ask this question in grade 8th, right? And I'll tell you where the problem with this question was.
Hmm.
They'll say, okay, I love South Indian. I asked them what dish you like. They'll mention this. I said, "What's your favorite restaurant?" They said one XYZ place, and I
Hmm.
said, when I asked them, tell me the best restaurant or best place you get this, they'll name a couple of restaurants. The second I asked them, how is that the best in the world? They're like
Hmm.
it, but they've only tried that. The problem is, if I haven't tried everything, I wouldn't know what best is. Now, can I
Excellent.
try everything? No. Now, the point is, most people don't understand this.
Yeah.
I hate the fact those random uncle aunties on Diwali and stuff ask kids, what do you want to do? But the problem is where new. So the point is, when we're asking, are the kids able to find interest? Are we giving them the tools to be able to discover interest in the first place? That's one. I believe research is one of the easiest ways to discover that. See, if I'm in class 8th, I'm like, listen, I love business. Let me
Hmm.
go and do something with this domain to research more about my family business or some other business, study about it. Two things will
Yeah.
happen. Either I will get more curious and more excited, or I'm like, oh, this is not what I thought. Then I can immediately move to another thing and discover. But if I wake up in 12th and you're like, listen, tell me what you want to study. I have never explored, I've never worked on this area. So my challenge is this. On the contrary, a student telling me, somebody mentioned I want to go to MIT. I love the fact the student is serious.
Hmm.
Now, second question to somebody like that will be that, oh, if you want to go to MIT, what do you want to study? They're like, MIT teaches everything. No, it doesn't. MIT is
Exactly.
one of the best places in the world to study engineering and sciences.
Hmm.
It offers business, but it's like going to Haldiram and saying, listen, I want to order Italian food. You have different places for different things, but a eighth grader wouldn't know that. I don't expect. But who is there? That's where, like you said, academic mentor comes into picture to question. I
Hmm.
say my job is only to probe people and ask questions, nothing else, nothing more than that.
Absolutely. So again, I see a couple of questions which are asking how does
Yeah.
research help? And but research helps in very different ways. The very fact that you are curious, the biggest plus of a research
Mm.
is that you are curious. If you are curious, you will be able to find out about it. Just like you are excited about a new game that has come out into the market, or maybe a new genre of dress code has come up, you are excited, so you go into the research and you find out about it. Just in the same way, believe you me, formal academic rigor can be easily inducted through the experience of academic research. It is a parallel academic system. I call it a parallel academic system because it does not rely heavily on
Mm.
content learning. It relies on skill development of that content. What do I do with the content? And that is the problem that I find a lot of student body facing today. They're brilliant, they're amazing, they're outstanding students, but nobody is guiding them to how do I use what I possess. So use it in a very academic manner, use it in an intellectual manner. It is not the research doesn't come as a privilege to only X number of people who are applying to a type of college. No, it comes to everybody. It is free of cost. It is research that you are doing. Why are you not delving into understanding the nuances of writing, of communication? So, the last thing, Abhishek, I want to talk about when I talk about academic research is the art of communication.
Mm.
Right. So, and I noticed this as an examiner, I have seen a challenge in students writing answers. They
Mm.
can't communicate. They know what to write, but they know all of it. For example, if you ask the question, and this is the feedback that a lot of teachers give to the students that, oh, he knows everything, but he writes everything about the topic. So, how do, again, it comes to the same question. Has somebody taught me the ability to sieve? And one of the key abilities to sieve is to do academic research. That's what it is. That is what it is teaching you beyond the text, beyond the curriculum. And actually, when you say out of the box, it is a non curriculum systemized version of transformative education. That is why I call it a skill school. I call it a parallel school to
Yeah,
the
true.
content version that you are having.
No, I totally agree to this. In fact, I've seen so many students mention about how do I start researching as well. See, it comes down to the fact that find anything you're curious about and start with it, right? Because end of the day, I am in a journey to discover. In fact, let's look at a very reverse thing. Let's assume you're not researching for also. In fact, ma'am, you correct me if I'm wrong. I feel students start researching or doing papers because somebody has given them a checklist to do for colleges. Please don't think of it that way.
Yes.
Research papers are supposed to be done, or research is rather supposed to be done by everybody to build that skill for yourself. If you get into that habit, somebody that told me that, oh, I want to study law in India. Why do I have to do research? I just have to go give CLAT. I agree with you. But now look at this scenario. I crack NLUs, any Hyderabad, Bangalore, Calcutta, you are there. You're one of the smartest kids in the country. Now I'll tell you what happens. The next 5 years, you will have at least 10 to 20 students in your batch who have published papers, have written work, going to the best law firms for internships, and you're wondering what did they do differently? We are in the same classroom. They put in the work before they entered college.
Exactly.
Every year I see
Thank
the number
you.
shift.
Thank you for bringing that up, Abhishek, because I think you just hit the nail on the head. That is the biggest advantage. It is an employable skill.
Yeah.
Become a lawyer, but once you enter the law firm, you need to read.
Yeah, absolutely.
How will you manage a profession? How will you communicate articulately? Whether you write it, ChatGPT, whatever it may do for you, it's a brilliant AI source. But you need to communicate your thoughts. We all are not robots, and you need to communicate it in writing in your working life. So, again, you brought out such a brilliant point about this fact that the person who has done so well in a traditional system of education may find himself not being able to get the best opportunities in internships.
No, I'll ask a question. Chitali, you here, no? Like, so let's say Chitali went to LSR. Now, academically, we all understand what you have to do to get there. Chitali, why don't you tell how are your batchmates and how many of them were actually aware how to go about research? Like, very curious.
I think in first year, all of us were like quite clueless and considering that we were also the COVID batch. So research, and I didn't even understand the concept of research till I was in school. I was extremely clueless. It was only in college that I got an idea. And then fortunately, LSR did recognize the importance of research. So we had a whole research circle. You could create groups, get direct mentorship from teachers. But I genuinely think that is the gap that exists at the institutional levels as well, that we need to like have a bottom up approach and a top down approach as well, that the institutes also need to be motivating students and supporting them in the same manner so that they're able to like progress with research efforts. And of course the motivation needs to be from the student side as well.
Absolutely. But thank you so much, Chetali, for sharing that insight, because I meet so many students on a daily basis who are at university also now. And those who have done an academic research paper, they just feel a little more empowered because, and they also come back to sometimes say that, the long answer questions, which nobody taught us, we are able to frame them better because we know the nuances of writing skill. So, research is not only just talking about your ability to gather information, but it is also teaching you to put it into a framework which is readable to anybody who opens that paper. So your thought is being accessed, your thought is being understood. You might be extremely brilliant in your thinking, but if you cannot communicate that, you will not be appreciated, is what I feel. So research skills, writing, communication, a holistic development is something which is what Abhishek started with, which is about an academic profile. I think these are the stepping stones of a shining academic profile. Not just your grades. Grades are extremely important. University, you have to go. But for grades, you have a content. This is skill. And university today, and Abhishek, please correct me if I'm wrong. Universities today, I find, are looking for skill, for interdisciplinary ability of the student, your ability to understand the text that you have studied, not a verbose repetition of the text.
Very true. No, I agree. The number of students you work with, Chitali has worked with so many students this year as well. And um, again, Chitali here comes from a university before this. So the angle is very simple. We get students telling us what you want to study. The funniest is when they say, I want to study business or economics or data science or engineering. Sometimes the course is not even at the university. Forget researching on a topic. They're not even looking at the courses the university is offering, right? And that bothers me so much. Second, like personally, when I look at this is a higher level thing, kids looking at research in STEM. There's a student mentioning in the eighth that I want to go to MIT. What research do I pick up? See, that's brilliant to hear. He's thinking, he's like, I have 5 years. Those 5 years can be game changer for building whatever. I would
Absolutely.
encourage students and parents to spend some time looking at global universities, best schools in India, that and the kind of research and topics people are talking about. That gives you an idea. We've had so many students this year who were like, I have no idea. Let me pick up the menu and see, okay, what is the student at Stanford doing? Sometimes your brain starts thinking, oh, I wish this boy is from California. Why can't I do that in India? And what will it look like in India? And you start developing your version of it. Research is not a complicated word. I feel we have to find a fun abbreviation to make research fun.
So true.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
also feel like students restrict, like research is looked at from a very restricted perspective, that it's more for STEM, but rather, like as you had mentioned in the beginning as well, every field requires like research. Even if we go as far as design, even design is based on so much research, regardless of which area of design you're going into. And with this world that we are stepping into, the junctures in research, understanding how STEM and businesses correlate, how psychology and data science can come together to help students better. And as ma'am, you were pointing out, like regarding analytical thinking, articulation, I feel like another very important skill that you develop through research is critical analysis, which doesn't come in easy. And with that is a skill that cannot easily be developed through other activities. Critical analysis can only come in through your own personal research, scouring through multiple pages and sources of information.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that in, Chaitali. Critical analysis is so important because it is unfortunately not opinion. It is based on evidence. So again, opinion is something very different, but it is baseless. And research is teaching you the ability to argue with data, argue with meaning, so that you are logical in your thinking. It does not any which ways make I'm not making a statement that what you say is not logical or what I say is logical. It is that if you are trying to put a point across, substantiated, then it is logic for everybody. So becoming logical, being able to see things through different perspective, becoming accepting of the kind of skill sets that are around you, being aware of your environment, all these are extremely important when you get into academic research. So it is not, and again, it is not limited to anybody, it is for everybody. And it is
100%.
non judgmental completely because it is not standing on any grading,
That
which
is
I feel which is so important for the student body today, to feel empowered and to feel that this is something that I have done. It's a challenge. I've taken it up and I've proved it right.
Absolutely, ma'am. 100% agree with you.
okay. I'm gonna quickly see if you have any questions. Otherwise, we're good. Uh, 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 somebody's mentioned others. Curiosity, how curiosity helps to know about your future. Is there any other way? I mean, I can either follow what is shared with me or just genuinely question everything. In fact, the way how a political joke the world has become, please ask your parents and people around you. And I think you're smart enough already. Even ChatGPT, listen, tell me, I've read this. What does this really mean? Just building that habit of asking questions from early on just goes a long way. So it's an easy thing. But yeah, any other questions we can take up, you can just type in the chat box. Otherwise, you can write to us, reach out to us. Happy to address anything and help you out further. Uh,
How do
and
you start
yeah,
researching? How do you start researching? Depends on what topic you want to research on. There is good authentic research sites that are available. There are lots of libraries that are available. There are a lot of published papers that are available, but everything depends on different genres. I would say a lot of organizations like McKinsey, like Bain, like
ah,
Deloitte, they do so much of research and they put it out there for you to view. And
brilliant.
these this brilliant research, and it is very readable research, and it is very connecting research, whether it could be about black holes, It could be about, the latest that is happening in the corporate world. It could be something about what has ISRO done, what is the latest launch that is happening. So how do you start researching? What is your curiosity? Are you interested in soccer? Figure out who was the first soccer player and why did he become a soccer player. That could be a story in itself. That is your journey to find your connecting points. So research can begin any time, depends on what you want to research on.
I think we can take up the questions related to subjects more during like one-on-one sessions. It'll be
Yeah,
much
when you have
easier to
that.
do that. So you can just drop an email with your queries. There is Abhishek's email. I will be dropping in my email as well. You can reach out to us on the same, and we're very happy to discuss it in detail, how to go about which kind of research and the steps for it. Yes.
Auntie, can you address this? How can a student publish a research paper?
Published research paper. Yeah, I was just reading that. So there are different, there are Indian journals, there are international journals. Every research paper has to be formatted in a particular manner in the journal in which it has to be indexed. So one thing which you need to be careful about is that what is the impact factor of the journal in which you want to publish. For example, there is IOSR, there is IJMR. These are all Indian journals which have an impact factor. Impact factor means how many number of times is that journal being visited for reference. So the higher the impact factor, the better the publication. So depends on which type of research paper you write. There are some journals which index only scientific papers. Then there is some journals which index only business papers. But like you hear about the Science Direct, you hear about Willy Library. These are international journals which take a little time, but every research paper which has to be published has to be formatted in a particular way, and then you get a link. That link is once the paper is published means that it is open for public to review, to cite, to being used in their own research. So one more thing which I think is, I would call it the ethics of good writing, where when you are writing something which has been initiated by somebody else, you are giving the person the appreciative rights of using somebody else's work, which is in technical language in research called citation. So when you write, it helps you to understand this skill of citation. So you can publish in different forms depending on what you write in Indian as well as international journals. And if you have a paper or something like that, you can definitely write to Abhishek or to Chaitali, and they can let us know, and we can give you the exact journal in which you could publish the paper.
Perfect. I think Chitali did good.
Yes. Thank you so much, ma'am. That is exactly what I was going to say. We have a lot of one-on-one specific questions coming in the chat box. So we are very happy to address them, whether it is about your profile building or research steps that you need to take. You can reach out to us on the emails we have provided. I will be typing them again, and you will be able to see it in the post-webinar message as well. Please reach out to us. We will be very happy to address your queries. Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a detailed and informative session. Thank you so much, Abhishek. Your insights are always very helpful. Ma'am, I personally am feeling even more confident about my knowledge too. So thank you so much both for the time and the information. Thank you everyone for joining in and the interactive session. We'll be hoping to hear from all of you, and we look forward to helping more and more people in their research and academic efforts.
Thank you so much, Chaitali, and thank you so much, Abhishek, for having me here.
Of course. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.